The bass was shaking the bottles behind the bar when I realized nobody was looking for me. I'd been standing there for a while, long enough to finish half a drink I didn't even want. The party was loud, messy, and packed with people pretending they still mattered. And in the middle of all that noise, she was laughing. Not a polite laugh, not a quick one, the kind that leans forward, hand on the counter, shoulders loose, eyes locked on one person only. It wasn't me. She was angled toward him like the rest of the room had faded out. He said something, leaned closer, and she laughed again, touching his forearm like it was natural, like it was normal, like she hadn't gone stiff every time I tried to touch her for months. I didn't storm over. I didn't interrupt. I just watched. I wanted to see how far she'd go if she thought I wasn't there. That's when I noticed it, the way she kept checking his reaction before she laughed, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear over and over. That move used to be for me. Used to. Quick pause. While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. Now, back to the story. Someone bumped into me, sloshed my drink, said sorry, and moved on. I stayed planted. The music changed. The crowd shifted. She never looked my way, not once. Then he said something that made her throw her head back and laugh loud enough to turn heads. That laugh hit harder than any insult because it wasn't careless. It was intentional. She wanted him to hear it, wanted him to feel special. I reached into my pocket without thinking. My fingers wrapped around the ring, warm from my skin. I rolled it between my thumb and forefinger, staring at the faint scratch on the inside from when I dropped it on concrete years ago. I remembered apologizing to her for that scratch, like it meant something back then. I walked forward before my brain could catch up. They were still talking when I stepped beside them. Close enough to smell her perfume, the one she said she stopped wearing because it gave her headaches. Funny how that worked. I didn't say her name. Didn't clear my throat. I just placed the ring on the bar between her glass and his. It made a sharp sound against the wood, loud enough. She stopped laughing. Her eyes dropped to the ring, then lifted to my face. Her smile collapsed so fast it looked painful. I turned away before she could speak and pushed through the crowd toward the door. I didn't go straight home. I didn't even get in my car at first. I just kept walking past the neighbor's stupid stone fountain, past the rows of parked cars lined up like trophies. My hands were shaking, not from anger, just from everything hitting at once. The air felt thick, like I couldn't breathe right. I'd walked out clean, silent, just like I pictured it in my head 100 times. But in real life, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like dying slow. I ended up sitting in my car for maybe 10 minutes, lights off, engine cold. I could still see the party lights flashing across the lawn through my rearview. I don't even know what I expected her to do, run out, call me, chase me down like it mattered. She didn't. My phone stayed dark the entire drive. About 10 minutes in, I started thinking maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe I should have waited, asked questions, gotten the full story. But then that little voice in my head, the one I used to ignore, finally said what I'd been too scared to admit. I didn't need the full story. I saw it, the way she leaned into him, the hand on his arm, the laugh. That wasn't nothing. That wasn't innocent. That was a woman doing what she knew she shouldn't. I pulled into the driveway, house all dark except for the porch light. Same light I always left on for her when she worked late. This time, it was for me. I left the car running and just sat there with both hands on the wheel like I was afraid to let go. My palms were sweating, mouth dry, and I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if this was just stupid flirting and I blew up my marriage over nothing? But deep down, I knew, people don't laugh like that with someone they barely know. Not unless there's something already there. Right as I shut off the engine, my phone lit up. Molly. Just her name on the screen. No text, just the call. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again and again. 3 missed calls. I finally picked up on the 4th. Before she could even say a full sentence, I said, "Don't lie to me." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "Dean, please." I hung up. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and tossed my phone face down on the couch. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until the sky started turning gray, waiting to see if she'd come home and how guilty she'd look when she did. It was almost 6 o'clock in the morning when I heard the key turn in the front door. I didn't move. I was sitting at the kitchen table, same spot all night, with a cold mug of coffee I never drank and 1,000 different versions of the same conversation playing in my head. I was ready for anything: tears, apologies, lies, maybe even a full confession. What I wasn't ready for was what actually walked through the door. She came in smiling. Not a big smile, not wide or giddy or anything insane like that, just this small, closed mouth, fake little smile like she was trying to read the room before deciding how to act. She set her purse down on the side table like it was any other morning, kicked off her shoes. Her heels made that soft thump against the wall. Still, I didn't move. I just stared. She finally looked over and saw me. "Oh," she said. "You're up." I didn't answer. She took a few steps closer, like this was normal, like we were about to have some casual Sunday morning chat about groceries or weather or whatever. "I figured you'd be sleeping," she added, her voice light, way too light for what she knew had happened. I waited a second, then asked, "Where were you?" That wiped the fake smile right off her face. Her shoulders stiffened just a little. Her eyes narrowed, not angry, just calculating. I could see it clear as day. She was flipping through a deck of excuses in her head, trying to pick one that sounded the least like a lie. "I went to Cassie's after the party," she said slowly. "A few of us were hanging out longer. You left so suddenly. I didn't know if you were coming back." "You knew." She looked down at her feet, classic move. "I didn't do anything, Dean," she said. "You misunderstood what you saw." I leaned back in the chair and crossed my arms. "You think I misunderstood you practically drooling all over some guy at a bar?" She snapped her head up. "I wasn't drooling. You were laughing at every word he said, like it was the best stand-up routine of your life. You touched his arm. You looked at him like I wasn't even there." Her jaw clenched. "Like that's not cheating." "No," I said. "But it's surely not love." There it was again, that flicker in her eyes. Guilt, panic, or just annoyance that I didn't buy the act. She looked like she wanted to keep arguing, but then she stopped herself. She just stood there, breathing through her nose, eyes darting like she was weighing her next move. I said nothing. She walked past me without another word and disappeared into the bathroom. Water started running. She was going to shower like nothing happened. I didn't hear much from Molly after that morning. She stayed quiet for a couple days. I think she was waiting for me to be the one to crack first. She always did that, waited me out, let the silence fester until I'd come knocking with an apology I didn't even believe in. But not this time. I was done trying to fix something that clearly didn't want to be fixed. On the third day, I got a message I wasn't expecting. Not from her, but from Cassie, her friend, the one she claimed she was with after the party. It was short: "Hey, just checking in. Molly okay?" She left the party early, didn't say much. I stared at the screen like it was written in another language. I didn't even answer her. I just tossed the phone on the couch and sat there, letting it all soak in. She'd lied. Not even a good lie, a lazy one. One she didn't think I'd bother checking. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about that guy. Eli. That name kept bouncing around in my head like it was supposed to mean something. So, I did what any angry husband would do. I started digging. I went through her Instagram, her old Facebook posts, her tagged photos, even her Venmo history. And there he was, Eli Carson. They followed each other on every platform. He'd been liking her stuff for months, only hers, commenting stupid things like "and still stunning" on random pictures. She never posted him, but he was there, always circling. Then I found a photo from almost 2 years ago, a group shot. Molly, Cassie, a few others, and Eli standing behind Molly, his hand barely touching her lower back. That was before she stopped letting me touch her like that. I couldn't sleep after that. My brain wouldn't let me. All the nights she came home tired, the weekends she needed space, the random girls' nights where she'd turn her phone off around 10 o'clock, all of it started making sense. But the thing that made my stomach turn was the realization that she didn't even bother to delete him from her socials. She didn't even try to hide it because somewhere deep down, she didn't think I'd care enough to look. The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic, just enough for a few days. I left her a note on the kitchen counter. 5 words in all caps, "You told one lie too many." I shut the door behind me without slamming it. She didn't try to stop me. Didn't call. Didn't text. And that silence was all the confirmation I needed. 3 days after I walked out, Molly showed up at the apartment I was staying in. It wasn't mine, it was a buddy's place. He was out of town for a month and let me crash there, no questions asked. I didn't tell her where I was, but I should have known she'd figure it out eventually. My truck was parked in the open lot, not like I was hiding. I didn't care if she found me. Part of me hoped she would, just so I could finally hear what kind of story she'd come up with. She knocked twice. I didn't answer right away, just watched her through the peephole, arms folded, looking nervous but still holding that edge of confidence she always carried when she thought she could talk her way out of anything. I opened the door and didn't say a word. Just stepped aside and let her walk in. She started talking the second I closed the door behind her. "I know how it looked, okay," she said. "I messed up, but it's not what you think, Doc." I didn't say anything. I wanted to hear the version she'd built in her head first. She took a breath and went into it, some long-winded explanation about how Eli was just a friend from college. They were catching up, and she got a little tipsy and maybe overdid it with the laughing. "That's all it was," she said. "Just innocent, harmless flirting. Nothing else." When she finished, I just nodded and asked one question: "What night did you and Eli start messaging again?" Her face shifted just barely, but I caught it, that half-second glitch in her expression before she said, "We haven't. We ran into each other randomly at the party." I hadn't seen him in years. I pulled out my phone, scrolled for a second, then held it up with the screen facing her. Her comment on one of his photos from 6 months ago, plain as day: "We seriously need to catch up soon." She stared at it for a full 5 seconds. Then she sat down on the edge of the couch and finally dropped the act. "Okay," she said, quieter this time. "So we've talked, but not like that. He's just been going through stuff. I was helping him out." I almost laughed. Helping him out? Sure. That's why she wore perfume that night. Why she touched his arm and looked at him like I didn't exist. "You know what the worst part is?" I said. "You're still lying even now. You've had 4 days, and you still can't tell me the truth." She didn't say anything. She just sat there with her hands in her lap, looking like a child waiting to be grounded. I opened the door and said, "You should go." And she did. No argument, no tears. She just picked up her bag and walked out. A week passed after I kicked her out of the apartment. No calls, no texts, not even one of those half-hearted just checking in messages, nothing. It was like she decided to disappear and waited out, hoping I'd eventually fold like I always did. But I didn't. I wasn't in the mood to play games. I'd finally stopped making excuses for her. But then something happened I didn't expect. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in the truck outside a gas station, eating a sad excuse for a sandwich, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. It said, "Hey, this is Eli. I know I shouldn't be texting you, but I think you deserve to hear some stuff." I stared at the message for a long time. My first reaction was to throw the phone out the window. My second was to text back, "Leave me alone." But curiosity got the better of me. I replied, "You've got 10 minutes. Start talking." What he sent next didn't surprise me. It just confirmed every instinct I'd already had. He said he and Molly had reconnected a year ago through a DM. She reached out first. At first, it was just catching up, old memories, casual talk, but it escalated. They met up for lunch, then drinks, then eventually hotel rooms. The first time it happened, she told him she and I were basically over, that we hadn't touched each other in months, that she was staying for logistics, not love. She painted herself as trapped, unhappy, neglected, like she was surviving me. Eli didn't try to defend himself. He admitted everything, plain and simple. Said he thought I knew. Said he honestly believed I'd already checked out, the way Molly talked about me. I didn't reply after that. There was nothing left to say. I just sat in my truck for a long time with the window down, letting the air hit my face while my sandwich went cold in my lap. So, she hadn't just flirted at the party. That wasn't some drunk moment of weakness. That was a year-long lie. A slow-planned betrayal. And you know what the worst part was? She could have come clean. She could have told me when I gave her the chance, but she looked me dead in the face and doubled down instead. Later that night, I poured myself a drink, sat on the balcony of that borrowed apartment, and opened up a new note on my phone. Title: Divorce to-do list. First item: call a lawyer in the morning. She didn't even knock this time. I heard the keys fumble in the lock, the door fly open, and then her voice cutting through the apartment like a blade. You talked to Eli? I didn't even look up from the couch. Just took a sip of coffee and let her stand there with that wild look in her eyes. She was wearing the same coat from last fall, the one I got her on a weekend trip to Flagstaff. She never wore it around me before, said it itched her neck. Funny how that worked. Yeah, I said. I talked to him. She slammed the door shut behind her and dropped her purse hard on the table like she wanted me to flinch. I didn't. I'd already felt everything I was going to feel. At this point, all I had left was clarity. What did he say? She asked, walking closer. Her face was flushed, like she'd been crying or screaming in the car the whole ride over. Like what didn't he say? I answered. He gave me the full timeline. Your messages, the lunches, the hotels. He told me about all of it. She froze mid-step, her mouth opened like she wanted to come back with something quick, something sharp, but nothing came out. For once, she didn't have a script. I kept going. He said you told him we were done, that I didn't care, that I barely noticed you anymore. I leaned forward, setting the mug on the table. You painted me like some distant, careless husband, just so you could feel better about betraying me behind my back. She shook her head. It wasn't like that. No, I said. Tell me what part one got wrong, Molly. I'm all ears. She sat down across from me, hands shaking now. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I just ended it, I could fix things with you. You've been lying for a year. You weren't trying to fix anything. You were just hoping I'd never find out. Then she said it, the line that finally made me feel like I didn't even recognize the woman I married anymore. You weren't supposed to talk to him. Not I'm sorry. Not I regret it. Just that. Like the problem wasn't what she did, but that I found out from the wrong person. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom, grabbed the small suitcase I'd already packed that morning. She saw it and her face dropped. Wait, where are you going? I didn't even answer. I walked right past her, out the door, and down the stairs without looking back. She called my name once. Just once. I didn't stop. 6 months. That's how long it took from the night I walked out with that suitcase to the day the divorce was finalized. 6 months of silence, lawyers, paperwork, splitting accounts, canceling subscriptions, going through boxes of stuff I never wanted to see again. She tried to drag it out at first, sent a few "can we talk" texts, left voicemails crying, said she was confused and made a mistake. But I never replied. I didn't need to, because I already knew how this kind of thing ends. Not in some big emotional reunion, but in a stack of signatures and legal fees. And to be honest, every time I saw her name on some document, every time I heard her voice through my lawyer reading a statement, it got easier. The woman who used to know every part of me became just another stranger trying to spin the story in her favor. But consequences, they showed up right on time. About a month after we signed the papers, a buddy of mine who still followed her on Instagram sent me a screenshot. Eli had ghosted her completely. No photos together, no likes, no tags. And then came the best part, she posted one of those long captions under a moody selfie, something like, "Learning to love myself again." Sometimes people you trust turn out to be the ones who break you. I laughed so hard I had to pull over. She cheated, lied, gaslit me for a year. And now she was casting herself as the victim because her little side piece didn't want her after she blew up her marriage. Classic. Meanwhile, I was already rebuilding. I got promoted at work, finally had the energy to focus again without the constant fog of suspicion hanging over me. I started going to the gym, eating real food, even sleeping better. And yeah, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just meeting people, remembering what it felt like to be around someone who chose to be there. And eventually, I met someone who didn't play games. No secrets, no weird energy, just honesty. You know how rare that feels after a year of being lied to your face? Like a real miracle. The last I heard, Molly moved to a smaller apartment outside town and started posting motivational quotes about healing. Sure, whatever helps her sleep. I don't hate her. Not anymore. I don't wish her pain. I just hope she wakes up every morning knowing she threw away something real for a guy who saw her as a fun distraction. And I hope she remembers the sound that ring made when I placed it on the bar, because I do, and I never want to forget it. Do you think Molly ever truly regretted what she did, or was she just sorry it backfired? Let me know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you stuck through the whole story. More wild confessions coming soon.